Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. Today's podcast guest is one I've been looking forward to since I first heard his name. Now, he's a composer, performer, educator, and dean and chief academic advisor at the California College of Music. Now, here's the fact that really and truly got me to him. He and I share the very same last name. He's Chris Kapica. Chris, welcome aboard.
Thanks, Rick. Great to be here.
Chris, did I get the name right?
Yeah. I'd say I've heard basically every variation that you could imagine. I've seen every spelling that you could imagine.
My brother and I were just talking about that yesterday. Yeah. Very good. Now, Chris was brought to my attention back in January when I was working with Courtney McKenna. She was a podcast guest back then, and she said, this was actually part of her bio, said, I've been studying music theory for 2 years with her mentor, Chris Kapica. And I told Courtney, I said, I have got to get him on the show because we share the same surname, and it's not a common name either. Kapica is not a common name. I can understand if it's Smith or Jones or whatever it might be, but Kapica, this one I have to ask because I have a feeling somewhere we're cousins. You know, we might be 12th cousins 4 times removed or whatever, but I think somewhere our lineage might cross. How far back can you trace your Kapica family line?
So I told my father that I was coming on the show, and I said, "What you got?" And I'm just going to read you the text he sent.
Oh, wonderful. Good.
I might as well not screw it up.
Okay.
He says, quote, "To the best of my knowledge, your great-grandparents, John and Pauline, came from Poland. I think they first settled in Pennsylvania because my father was born in Mackinac, Pennsylvania, a place I had never heard of. And I looked it up, and it has about 600 people living there in the 2010 census. So, you got to land somewhere, I guess. They later migrated to Yonkers, where they owned a grocery store for a while. My mom, as in his mom, lived in Rhode Island and met my father, who was a sailor, while he was stationed in Newport. My father was born, in Fall River, Massachusetts, and grew up in Rhode Island.
Right.
So basically, it sounds like my great-grandparents came here, John and Pauline, and I think there's a little bit of Polish on his mother's side too, because her maiden name was Plesniak. I mean,
that's like a Polish name.
You don't get much more Polish than that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Pierogies and Plesniak.
Gosh,
that's about where it gets. But my background, to what I understand, is predominantly Polish with some kind of Nova Scotia roots thrown in there. Some other mutt Eastern European stuff happening at some point.
It's strange. When I was going through the family tree and such, I noticed there was a lot of Kapicas in like New Jersey. I think it's like they came over and stayed right there, New York, New Jersey, Eastern Seaboard. My father, Henry Kapica, was born in Gary, Indiana, in 1920. His father, Stanislaw Kapica, was born in Poland in 1881, and his father was Lucas Kapica, born somewhere around 1859 or 1860 in Poland. So it's nice that we share we're just going to call ourselves cousins from this point forward. Okay. Just. All
right, cuz.
Okay. Very good.
I'm just curious, because I think my family is from Gdansk specifically.
Yep. I'm pretty sure, because I'd heard somewhere that it was Gdansk, and I wasn't sure. So okay, we'll go with that. We're
coastal people, and I mean that hasn't changed. I'm now on the West Coast, so I guess it's just
I'm on the south side of Lake Michigan. So there you go.
We're water people.
Water people, very good. So that aside, let's talk about your career. Like I said earlier, I found out from Courtney McKenna that you were her mentor. Other involvement with Courtney, how did you get involved with her in developing her music and her music style and such?
Yeah, so I mean, I've been teaching for a long time, and a kind of side hustle in addition to the school gig is, I work with artists, over Zoom basically. And Courtney was referred to me by a friend of hers who was also studying like ear training, oral skills, sort of stuff. But also she was a songwriter, and so she would, present demos, and I'd give her feedback and stuff like that. And Courtney is a, prolific songwriter in her own right. And so I guess this other student told Courtney about our work together. And so Courtney, I guess, and I have been working for maybe a little over 2 years now. And, it's been great to see just kind of how far she's come. I mean, she's, gotten a lot more confident. She's gotten a lot more skills, and we're not just talking about theory all the time. We're talking about like artist development strategy, how am I going to position myself in the industry and stuff like this. I'll give her, feedback on her songs, and, we'll listen to some mixes that she gets back, and, I'll give her some rough mix notes that she can bring back to her engineer and stuff. So it's kind of fun because, she's kind of getting the full package deal in terms of the toolkit you need for being an artist in the 21st century. When it goes just beyond the craft, and it, comes down to, marketing stuff, even, and we're covering all the bases.
It makes her a well-rounded musician rather than just an individual who winds up becoming, hey, I have a song on YouTube now, I've got 6 million views, but I know nothing about the music industry or anything of that. Right. We started talking about the fact that you are, of course, a educator. You are the Dean and Chief Academic Officer at the California College of Music in Pasadena. How about let's throw a nice pitch to the college as far as a plug. If anyone's interested in it, we'll go ahead and include it in the notes. All right.
Great. So California College of Music, CCM, as we come to know it, we're a small private popular music school. So basically most music schools are either classical, like my background, or jazz, and we're sort of everything in the middle. So rock, pop, R&B, neo soul, funk, reggae, hip hop, we're kind of doing everything. And so it's been really fun for me to sort of take all of the skills that I've cultivated over the years, either being a session guy or being a composer or whatever. And I get to sort of just channel all of it through my work there. And we basically have like 18-month associate degree programs. We've got like a 1-year songwriting and production certificate, because I think we recognize that for most people who want to go into music, you just need skills right now.
Exactly. Yeah.
And, most people don't want to necessarily, dip deep into the piggy bank to go to 4 years and beyond of education. We try to supercharge it into a short amount of time, try to give you basically, if not everything that you need to know, the ability to then, with your strong foundation, build upon it and continue to teach yourself after you're done with your program. We've had lots of, successful students, from international students get artist visas and things because, they've just been so well prepared, through our institution. We've had people on, La Voz, the Spanish voice and things like this. We've had people singing backups and all kinds of cool projects. And, we've got a lot of talent coming through. It's a great community, and I'm really happy to be a part of it.
Right. And speaking of great talent, you are also a composer and performer. And the first song we're actually going to feature on the show here is called The Void by Faux Friends. Can you tell us your involvement and where you are in regards to your involvement and how this all came to be?
Yeah, Faux Friend is just kind of the project I've wanted to start forever. And it's the sort of thing where when you're in classical music, you write orchestral stuff for, the concert stage. If I was in a rock band for a long time. I played with John Baptiste for a long time as a sideman. I was consistently either making other people's music better, which I love doing. Mm-hmm. It's something that I think is a real sort of skill of mine that, I guess they call it third manning, these days. But helping bring other people's vision to life has been something that I've always done. And so, of course, I was writing my own kind of modern classical stuff for a long time, but in terms of like a recorded project that really utilized all of the technology and sounds that I've always been drawn to, Faux Friend was sort of my first sort of COVID baby,
mm-hmm. A lot of things evolved out of COVID, that's for sure.
Oh yeah. And so this is something that has been on the back burner for a long time. This is sort of the first sort of offering from that project. I'm basically, writing, recording, everything myself. But I think as I had to push pause on it for a little while because, I got married and, work.
Well, congratulations on that, Chris.
Oh, thank you. She's not a Kapica, but she is now.
She is now, yeah. Aren't we all?
But, it's been really fun to sort of explore all these different aspects of music that's interested me over the years and sort of really just kind of put my unbridled self out there. And now in the reboot of this project, I've had a lot of things on the back burner, but now, we're working on getting them all out. And, now I've got some people that are going to come, go on this crazy ride with me. And they're all former students, which is amazing.
That's cool.
And that's something that I've always wanted to do. The guitar player who's featured on the track, Bruno Cunha, amazing MFer, I guess I could say, from Brazil, and, one of the most incredible musicians that I've had the privilege to work with. And I've always wanted to kind of, be in that sort of 80s Miles sense, like kind of bring on the young cats and,
wonderful.
Put them on the project. And so they're going to bring a lot of energy and, musicianship and talent to this music. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can do.
Well, let's listen to it. It's called The Void from Faux Friend. And here it is right now, featuring Chris Kapica on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
What do you want me to say? I can't bring myself to swallow the disarray. And when the levee finally gives way, I'm gonna break, shut down, stay stuck below the fray. I wanna take it to the void. The place so nothing of the void. Where we can revel in the hopeless and destroyed. Lights out. What do you want me to say? How can you walk around calm while the tick of a bomb beats at the steady pulse of a world betrayed? And Gaia's face turns a pallid shade as the swamp performs a serenade. Death by dystopian decree? Say my name. Why don't you listen to me? Another brush with fate. Another dusk awaits. Another iron in the furnace of hell. Another ne'er-do-well. Another lie to tell. Let us pray. But what do you want me to say? Take it to the void. Take it to the void. Is that what you want me to say? Forsaken in the void. Forsaken in the void. Forsaken in the void. Forsaken in the void!
Great song right there. The Void right there from Faux Friend featuring Chris Kapica on the Someone You Should Know podcast. Chris is my guest today, and you wear a lot of hats. I wear a lot of hats, and when I prepare for the show, I really and truly put a lot of love into it. What is the biggest enjoyment from all the hats that you wear?
It's a good question, because if you had asked me this question when I was coming out of my master's at 23 or whatever, I might have had a different answer for you. I was ready to, take over the world and, basically slay the stage and everything like that. I still love doing that. I still love playing, but now in sort of my new role as predominantly a teacher, I've found that my perspective on music has changed because I'm just, I'm actually listening to a lot more music now than I was at various periods of my career, just because, I have all these students introducing me to new stuff and, they're forcing me to keep up and everything, which has been amazing because I'm, getting all these new insights into sort of where music is and is going. And that's been really fun. And, the immediate connection you can make with people who are literally in front of you has been rewarding because, if you, let's say, are playing on stage, perhaps the audience is at a distance and maybe you don't interact with them. If you're releasing music digitally or, I worked for a little upstart record label for a little while and we did some, music for sync licensing and stuff like this. You see it in a commercial. Yeah, that's cool. You see it in some, streamed show. That's cool. But you don't necessarily get to see the impact that it has on the listener. As a teacher, I get to see this in real time. And that's been the most fun for me because, I'm trying to build a school and a way of teaching music that I wish I had when I was coming up. And, I'm trying to just kind of bring the same intensity that I bring to, some ludicrous song like The Void, and, my histrionics on stage, trying to bring that same intensity to education because I think, popular music deserves that. It deserves that rigor. It deserves that passion. And we're trying to make it happen for a lot of people.
It's nice to see your passion, man. It's really cool. Really cool. Yeah. It's strange. I've just finished my 40 plus years on the radio. I retired as of the first of the year. And when I started this particular podcast show, this was actually a reboot of a show that I did in the late 90s for a radio network. I realized that the music that I was listening to on a regular basis had gotten stale. And a lot of the new music I was just not grasping. But when I started doing this show and interviewing these guests and listening to what they're putting out, because it's all over the place. There's some blues, there's some jazz, there's some R&B, there's hard rock, there's classical, a little bit of everything. And I'm really enjoying that because it really and truly makes me realize that music hasn't died. Because a lot of people said, oh, music's dead and it'll never, ever, be what it was in the 70s. I think there's a lot of great music out now, and I think there's a lot of great talent out there. And that's what basically the whole premise of the show is. Someone You Should Know is basically there's still a lot of talent out there. And I'm trying to save you a couple $100 from having to see all these performers that are charging umpteen $100 to go see a show. So that's what the whole show is about. And I see you and I have a lot of parallels in the sense we're trying to help growing other people, and I really like that. Another song that we're going to feature is actually a medley of about 8 songs that you compiled, part of a commercial music reel. You were talking about this particular thing. Is kind of neat because I use a lot of production music and there's a lot of great production music in there. Can you tell us a little bit about the background, what we're going to hear next?
Sure. So what brought me to Los Angeles was an old manager of a rock band that I had played with for years was starting a artist development group, which is this kind of one-stop shop where they're salarying the talent. And they're basically giving them the full suite of services that one needs to grow as professional artists. And it was really exciting project. I got to learn so much because we're just in the studio for 9 hours a day, 5 days a week. And, you're getting paid to do it. I mean, how can you beat that? Mm-hmm. And so What I had to learn really fast, though, was, of course, like I studied classical composition in school, and of course, that's a certain skill set. Another skill set is, being able to get under the hood of the technical side of music and understand how sound is produced and understand all the sort of micro nuances of all of these subgenres and things like this. Be able to read the tea leaves when, let's say, a music supervisor gives you a brief and you have to do something fast but slow, happy but sad, and like, what does that even mean? And so, that part of making music for media was something that I hadn't really had the chance to do, because, when you're in concert music, you just basically just say, hey, everybody, you guys play this, and that's it. You don't have to answer to anybody else but your own sort of whimsy and caprice. And so now that when you have all these executives who are going to weigh in, and they may or may not be musically inclined at all, but they just know it when they hear it, to be able to produce something that jives with picture was a very new experience for me. And so I was learning a lot on the job. I was trying to get my technology chops up to snuff on the job. And I had, a great partner, a French guy named Charles Cast, who I love to death if he's listening. Hope you're well, bud. And I actually started learning French because I'm sitting next to him every day in the studio. And of course, he gives me all the dirty words, and here I am on Rosetta Stone learning the prim and proper. But it was really illuminating. I got to try all kinds of stuff. One day we'd make a Mumford and Sons banjo bop. Other days we do this hyper pop, super synthed out stuff. Some days we do some doom metal stuff. We did all kinds of crazy things in the studio, and I got to really push myself aesthetically. And, of course, this reel is only, a microcosm of the sort of work we did. If anybody's really curious, the project was called Straight to Voicemail, spelled STR82VM. The thinking being, hey, we're not going to pick up the phone because we're always working.
Right.
And we were sort of like a studio project for B2B music. And we have a record that we called My Grammy Vice, which was basically...
Right, I saw that. That was cool. I thought that I like the nice play in words, yeah. Yeah,
a bunch of tunes from 2014. They're at the top of the charts, and we basically said, let's just completely reimagine them. So we did some Johnny Cash version of Stay With Me by Sam Smith. We did all kinds of wild stuff. Wonderful. We did a Beastie Boys / Slayer version of Problem. It's all this crazy stuff. And so it was really fun to just sort of stretch out and do all kinds of things. And so this reel is just a compilation of some of these cuts that I made, for either various pieces of media or things that I just wanted to have as part of the label's library of stuff, because they were basically a library also. And so we just had to make things for the library too. And so this reel is just, a few selections from all that music that I did.
8 songs, a little 8-song medley here. This is the commercial music reel from Chris Kapica. Check it out. That's a little different. That's an 8-song commercial music reel put out by my guest today, Chris Kapica. And Chris, let's talk about some links to your projects you're working on, and of course the school as well. If you would go ahead and shoot us some links.
Sure. So if you want to find me on Instagram, at Monster Kapica, the monster part of it is a long story. If we have time, perhaps. But the Faux Friend project at Faux Friend Music. If you want to hear just all kinds of recordings and videos that I've made, if you want to see videos of me playing bass with really ridiculously long hair, for example, you can just go to my personal website, chriskapica.com. There's audio and video links there. If you want to, let's say, book a lesson with me, you can set something up right through the website, and be looking forward to helping you out.
Wonderful. And by the way, those will all be down in the show notes. So if you've missed anything along the way, we'll include those in the show notes. Now, Chris, I want to close with one thing that we always love to talk about. And this is called Tales from the Road. Any performer that has been on stage or has had to load in, load out, or do anything like that has got one. And it's basically those road stories where things didn't go as planned. You wound up going to the wrong venue, or your vehicle broke down, or you got there and you realized that you didn't have your instrument that you needed, or you didn't have the reed to your saxophone or whatever. Think about that, Chris. What would you say Chris Kapica's Tales from the Road might be? Oh,
man. I mean, where do you even begin? How much time you got?
Okay, I've got about 5 minutes, so let's do it.
Okay, so here's maybe a couple very different projects, different ends of the spectrum. One is a technical one is just a situational one.
Okay, go ahead.
So I was playing with John Baptiste, and we were playing Central Park Summer Stage in 2009, and other people on the bill were Esperanza Spalding, Lettucey, some real titans of jazz, R&B,
right? Yeah.
And it was an amazing bill. And we're opening, and John is one of these types where you never really know what's going to happen. That's what kind of made it really exciting to work with him. He always keeps you on your toes, makes you be sharp. He tells me 30 seconds before we get on stage that I'm going to open the show with the national anthem on the electric bass solo. And literally we're about to walk out and do this. And so I say, oh my God, I have to arrange something in 30 seconds. And so I'm trying to, just noodle for a few seconds just to, okay, what key am I going to play today? Like all these little micro decisions. And so I get on stage and they have these huge half stacks and stuff like this. And I come out, he told us to wear wacky stuff. So I have these pajama pants on, I look ridiculous. I have these pink Wayfair. It was a mess. And so I decide, okay, I'm going to make it really dramatic, and I'm going to open with this giant Pete Townsend windmill, and I gear myself up for it. I set myself up, and then I do it, and no sound comes out. Of course, the amp wasn't set up the right way or something, because we're using the back line for the festival, right? We didn't bring any of our own stuff, and so I guess they had forgot to flip the bypass switch or something silly thing like this. And I do this huge Pete Townsend windmill and no sound comes out. And of course I look so stupid. And
he's ridiculous. Playing an air guitar.
Eventually they get my sound going, and I stumble my way through it to, mild applause, but, that was definitely one of those, oh God, what am I doing? Oh God, what's happening? Sort of stories. Another one was I was playing in a rock project that I was involved with for about 3 or 4 years or so. And we were, as bands do, playing, just stops in between, routing a tour so that, we were playing just some random stops, and we were going to play Atlanta. And of course we get the Monday night at 10:30 shift.
Oh, nice.
And so the only person I know in Atlanta was my ex from high school, and we're on pretty good terms, so it's fine. I message her and I say, hey, we're playing the graveyard shift on a Monday night. I know you are a forensic scientist that needs to be at the lab in the morning, but do you want to come by, check us out? She says, yeah, okay, sure. So I'm hoping, as band guys do, for a couch or something like this, someplace to crash that's not the van, and just get through this gig. And so We play the show, but the people who were in attendance that night, Monday at 10:30, were my ex, her new boyfriend, and the bartenders, and that's it. And so that was what. And this is after lugging my 10-inch speaker cabinet up 2 flights of stairs. This was, after sort of grunting it out with all the load in, load out stuff. And of course, the only people who show up are my ex and her new boyfriend.
Yeah, there you go.
Now husband, beautiful family, amazing, super happy for them. But like everybody sort of glamorizes touring and like being on the road and stuff like this. For every, time we opened for Heart in front of 10,000 people or whatever, every time there's about 25 other times where you're playing to roaches or, you have to kind of get through.
Yeah.
But like, you gotta, that's part of the gig. But at the same time, ended up being a really great night because the bartenders really loved our set and they decided after the show, they were going to take us out for a night out in Atlanta, and we had a really debaucherous, great time on a Monday night, and it ended up working out great. Wonderful. But you have those moments where you're just like, what am I doing? Because it can get like lonely and depressing sometimes on the road. And so anybody who's listening who's, just dying to tour, take a beat. I'd say put the energy that you have into playing shows right now in the digital age into recording music, getting your craft together, putting your best presentation of yourself online. And then the shows will come and hopefully you don't have to force yourself to play to your ex and her new boyfriend, and that's it.
That's exactly right. We've been speaking with Chris Kapica. We found out that he is now a cousin of mine. We're just going to say that. We thank you so very much for being on the show, Chris. And we invite everybody to check out the links. Once you go down to the show links there and maybe book a session with Chris. And if you are contemplating, if you've got a child that is contemplating a career in music, we'll also include the notes to his school that he's got in Pasadena, California as well. Chris, any closing thoughts you'd like to say?
It's just really fun to be here, Rick, and it's nice to meet another Kapica, whether by blood or not.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've had a chance to get to Poland, but I'm itching to go.
I am. I actually am. Yeah. I would love to go to Gdansk. I think that was number 1 on my list in Poland. So that's cool. Great. And so I guess a question for you to end it. What's your favorite Polish cuisine? I have pierogies. Pierogies, instantly, yes. Yeah, pierogies. My family was really big into the pierogies. As a matter of fact, I make some darn good pierogies too. How about yourself, Chris?
I'm a gołąbki guy myself.
Gołąbki, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I love me a good stuffed cabbage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've tried to make it myself a few times, and getting the timing right is tough because you want the consistency of everything to hold, but you don't want it to dry out, and you don't want the cabbage to be underdone and everything. Yeah, you just want it to be just perfect. Aunts and grandmothers are the only ones who can make it right. I've learned that. I'm telling you, Luella Plesniak, God bless her heart. We would go to Rhode Island for vacation during the summer and stuff, and she'd make kvassy and pierogies and stuff, and it's just lights out. And so there's a couple of good Polish places out west here. Maybe if you end up making it out here one day, I'll show you around. Wonderful. And if you make it to Chicagoland, you're on my dinner bill that night. Okay. Awesome. Well, Chris Kapica, my guest today on the Someone You Should Know podcast. It's been an absolute treat, and I look forward to getting to know you a little bit more in the future. Thanks, Rick. Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.